Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Christopher Nyalwal, and I am the founder of Craft Your Future. Now, if you're watching this, then you are definitely at the Next Generation Investor Summit 2025. Now, guys, give yourselves a high five, give your neighbor a high five. I know this has been an amazing event so far, and guess what? It's just going to get hotter. Now, we're going to have an amazing discussion about estate planning. I know many of us rarely talk about this topic. In fact, talking about death is even a taboo amongst us. So today we're going to demystify a number of things regarding estate planning. Who is it for? Why is it important? Why must you have it? Now, for joining me for this talk is Karen Rono, and my ask for you is to sit back, take out your notebooks and pens, and write down serious things that are going to be coming your way, and make sure to implement. Remember, money always flows towards wisdom. So you need this wisdom for your money to keep flowing towards you.
Thank you very much, Chris. So let me first start by saying my name is Karen Rono. By now, you've already heard a lot about me, and I'd like to make official apologies. The idea was to be with you on the ground and to enjoy just having conversations around various topics. However, in the course of my commitment, I received an invitation to speak at a different event in Cairo. So by the time we are airing this, I'll be in Cairo moderating my very first international panel. So pray for me and keep in your prayers. But save for that, today we're going to enjoy our session, and I will take it back to Chris so that he can guide us further.
I love it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be discussing estate planning. Karen Rono is a managing partner for Chelagat Law Advocates. And she's going to tell us a bit about how did she even end up in estate planning, and why is it important for us to have this as part of our investment portfolio. So Karen, please take it away.
Thank you. So as Chris has alluded, I'm an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, and once upon a time was an associate in a very huge law firm. And I remember when I was having conversations with a lot of my clients then, one thing was very clear. We plan ourselves, we earn money, we do a lot of things, but we really don't plan for the one thing that is inevitable, which is death. So I remember having a conversation with my client, and one of the things they said was, you know, Karen, something you don't know about me, I come from a polygamous family. And right now, my family is in tatters. And it became such a predictable narrative to a lot of people, whether it's a husband died, a parent died, and for whatever reason, they were left in disarray because there was no particular organization to that effect. And that is how my practice area, specifically estate and succession planning, was born, where I just needed for us to have some form of order. Also remember, the Bible is very clear in Proverbs, 13:22. A good person leaves inheritance for his children. One of the fundamental things we'll be doing here is we want your voice to be heard even beyond this room, so that when you are actually 6 feet under, everyone is very clear on the intentions you had way before you even had the capability to basically anything happening to you. So today we're going to have that conversation and see various ways of how you can organize your estate. But this time is just called your asset inventory. So when you're alive, it's the asset inventory they're going to focus on. When you're dead, everyone else will be referring to it as the estate. Yes, Chris.
All right. So clearly we have started on a very high note. I love it. So the theme for this year's summit is investing with purpose. And you've clearly stated that there's an underlying purpose, which is to leave an inheritance for your children's children. So why is this important for us? And who is this for anyway? Because from experience, many people have said setting up of wills and trusts are things that the rich do, the people who have assets. And it's not for common mwananchi. Please speak a bit into this and feel free to share some examples of, why it's important.
Okay. So one thing I think the myth I'd like to clarify is all these forms of estate planning are not meant for the rich or anyone. It's meant for us. Whether you're the common mananchi, whether you're the person who earns maybe 200, 500 shillings, there's something that you have that is of worth or value that you'd like to pass on to a different generation. In our last session, where we had a very close session, one of the things we discussed is values are also very important for you to pass on to the next generation. So even the same way that you're very keen on passing certain values to your children or to your children's children, then you need to be very keen on where your assets go. And when you're talking about assets, the other version of assets is liabilities. You also need to be very keen. If today something is to happen to you, who settles your liabilities? Is it that you're going to leave your children with debts? Is it that they're going to now start thinking about, okay, I have my own expenses, but I still have to think about mom or dad's liabilities? So where I'd like us to start is demystifying the idea that planning for your lifetime and even the afterlife is not a thing for a rich person. So let's start with something simple. When I was in first year, the shocker that I got was something as simple as my phone needs to be in a wheel of sorts. Not because of anything, it's just that I do not want to die today and it's still there. Maybe I died in a very simple circumstance, like I just slept and I didn't wake up. And everyone is trying to fight because they're thinking, okay, where does this iPhone go to? The idea would be there's already a designated person that you've said, for example, I'd like my last born brother to have it simply because he needs it most for his schooling. So we start from there. Now, one of the conversations we've had back and forth thing is, where do you start from? Mm-hmm. So I have this particular set of assets, but I'm so confused. Who do I go to? Who do I have this conversation with? That's why we're here to solve that. So with your permission, I think I can just take it from like a client scenario, a typical client scenario.
Please go ahead.
Then we can now go to the tools.
Mm-hmm.
So the first idea is you need to have what we term as an inventory. So detail everything that belongs to you in terms of your assets. Detail everything in terms of your phone, your car, whether it's a nice sofa set you have in the living room. Just write it. Let's start with a piece of paper. So write in a piece of paper and then sit down. Look at your circles. Do you have shares in the circles? Do you have some money you've stored as savings? Do you have in your insurance schemes? Do you have, check your forms because you're always given nomination forms. Who have you appointed? Start with that. Then look at the reverse. Do I have any form of loans that I've taken? Have I charged a particular property somewhere? Again, detail that. Based on that, now go and have a conversation with a lawyer, specifically an advocate. I say an advocate because an advocate is one who's empowered by the law to serve you in terms of legal matters. So go to an advocate and say, this is my inventory in terms of my asset and my liabilities, and I would like to write a will. On that particular day, we'll have someone who will show you a dummy, what a dummy will looks like. So you'll see what a dummy will looks like. You'll notice that at the beginning, you can even cater for your burial, how you would like your funeral to be run, your expenses in terms of a funeral, because sometimes it's very good for you to think about, if I was to die today, would I want to start fundraising for that? When I say I mean my family, or would I like that catered for within my estate? So we move on from that, we now go to the assets. Now, when it comes to assets, you want to be very clear who you're divesting your assets to. And here we're talking about wills. So for example, if I have this phone and I'm saying I want it to go to Chris, I want my phone to go to Chris, and I need it to pass on immediately after I'm dead. Your lawyer is able to do that. But you see, that is why you need a legal specialist. They're able to tell you, fine, this can go this direction, this cannot go this direction. Then beyond that, you need to have capacity. So of course, if you want to do a will, you have to be over 18 because that is the age limit that the law provides for you to have. Above and beyond that, once you've done that, you need to have 2 witnesses who need to be present at the point of execution. And execution in this case is signing the will. Then we move past it. So that's one of the first tools. So I'll give you a bit of a break to breathe in and just factor that in before we move on to a different one.
Wow, you've really gone technical really fast. Okay. I was hoping we would take it a bit slower.
Okay.
Because what are I want to just start off first. You've gone about, explaining all the different things that we need to have in place. But what are some of the dramas that you've experienced with people who have not put a trust, who've not started a family trust in place? What are some of the scenarios that you had in mind around this?
So I think the one that honestly I felt the most pain and it became emotive for me was it was a dispute that involved 2 families. Of course, it was a typical Kenyan setting, as I'd put it. It was a polygamous setting. There was a husband. He left 2 wives. The first wife's children were about 12. They were adults. The second wife's children were 4, but they were minors. And then he passed on, natural circumstances. So there was no qualmish as to how he passed on. So it came now at the point for how to divest it. Now, in law, so that we don't get too technical and hear lawyers discussing you, at least you have a bit of know-how. There are 2 types of succession. There's testate and intestate. Testate succession means that you've died when you have a will in place. Intestate is a reverse, where you died and you didn't leave a will in place. So in that circumstance, then the law kicks in. So in that situation, the gentleman died not having left a will. Now, the problem that occurred was that he had left so much property. So the dilemma was how these particular parties were to split amongst themselves all this property. Then you can imagine one family had children who were already out of school. The other one had minors. So these minors, of course, their education had to be catered for. And that we see it a lot where people die and they didn't think about schooling and the like. And I like that Mnindo is on the ground. So she's going to talk to you about education policies and the like, because those are things that you need to consider even as we're having this conversation. So that's one among the many. The other one that I've noticed is very common is today Karen gets married. She's so happy. She meets, let me use Kipla, who I've just met today. Meets Kipla, they give birth, and then the unfortunate thing happens. Chela and Kipla pass on. So they leave children. Possibly Chela because she's a lawyer and Kipla because he's in this comm space. They did so much work and they actually really, in terms of, they left a lot. But there's no one who can actually speak and say, for example, before Chela died, she wanted this to be done. And that's why we say succession is the art of planning and having your voice being in a room even when you're not present, because you need to have a document or a vehicle in place that can speak even when you're not in that room. And that happens a lot. And we need to be able to put our children in spaces whereby they can even, basically their lives are planned out. We call them trust fund babies. That's a good way of saying it. But we need to give them the capability to live life without having to alter their lifestyle simply because the two parents died and left them in a circumstance where they don't have any way of leaning towards. Yes.
Yeah. There are several scenarios. One, for example, a couple gets married, then they get divorced, then there's some loss or something like that. Also, I think some of those things tend to bring a lot of complications in terms of planning for the children. Maybe someone marries again. So I think I like what you're saying, ensuring that your voice is heard even when you're not in the room. I love that. So maybe we can go back to, okay, now you're starting to talk about the tools. So you had mentioned the first one, which was having a will in place.
Yes.
But from our previous conversations, a will is not enough. Maybe because it's the capability of being contested in court. So what are some of the other tools that we need to solidify this plan? Yeah.
So even as we're going towards that direction, I forgot to tell people, please formally register your marriages. It's very important.
All right.
Because one of the things when someone dies and you have no way of proving that you are formally married to them, a lot of these succession laws do not support you unless you have a child. And maybe one day we'll have that conversation, but the warning na onyo laleo ni, please register your marriages. Now,
so the traditional one does not count?
It does count, but you need to register it formally. You need to go to the marriage office and actually have it registered. And that was as per the Marriage Act 2014. So it's very important that we also give that disclaimer. Yes. Now, back to your question in terms of, we've already spoken about tasted succession. Now, we move on to what I tend to think is more bulletproof, which is normally family trusts. So family trusts are basically a vehicle in which you get to have your assets registered under an entity that occupies a legal entity. So basically, it has a life of its own. Now, the beauty about trust is it has several parties in here. So I'm going to break it down in the simplest way possible. So there's someone in a family trust setting that is called a testator. The testator is the person, I'm sorry I have to get technical, but it's very important.
Keep it as simple as possible.
I'm going to keep it as simple as possible. So a testator is the person who starts the trust. They're the person who, they've sat down and thought, okay, I have all these assets. Why don't I, and again, it doesn't have to be assets in terms of property. It can be funds. So I have all these assets and I want to put them in a safer place where even the court, keyword, the court itself cannot interfere because the court can only speak into looking at who the trustees are, but it can never come and sort of recalculate or recalibrate what you've already set. And that's the beauty about a trust. So a testator is the person who establishes a trust. In a trust situation, there's now the trustees. The trustees are the ones who manage the trust property, whether it's funds or real estate. And then towards the end we have the beneficiary. Now let's give an example of Chela and Kipla, now that I've used that relevant situation. So Chela decides one day, I have these properties and I want my children to be protected. So Chela has youngins. Her youngins are probably called Kipruto. Sorry that I am using words for my community. It's just that we had a moment here. So Kipruto is a product of Chela and Kipla. So she says, I really want Kipruto to live a life beyond me, where if anything happens to me today, Kipruto is set for life. So what will happen is I am the testator who is starting the trust. I will come and talk to my husband. I'll talk to a few friends and request them to be the trustees and say, in the course of my living, you know who I am, how I live my life. And I want to protect Kipruto. So I have these properties that have been going on for a while. I now want them to be under the trust. In fact, I have this 100,000 somewhere or 200 or millions that I want to move on to be property of the trust. Now, the trustee's role is supposed to be now to take care of the trust property. So, for example, if it's money, the responsibility is to find ways of investing that money in order for it to benefit the beneficiary. But at the end of the day, the end goal, we call them the certainties of trust. The end goal is very clear that it's supposed to be for the benefit of the beneficiary. And that's why trusts are very good in terms of they're predictable, they're certain, the subject matter has to be extremely certain. So we don't have this bit where an objector wakes up one day and says, when this person was alive, they thought about me, just that they had not updated their will. No. A trust is clear. And a trust, you can even benefit from the trust as the person who established the trust. So there's that very clear, well thought out process of it. Yes. So that's another form of estate planning. There are other three, but they're not as bulletproof as a family trust. So I'll just mention them in passing.
Okay, maybe just skim through them.
Yeah, so there's the power of attorney. And I think all of us are familiar with it. There's two types, general and specific. General is you appoint someone and have it registered and stamped, in which you're saying, this particular person is going to deal with my estate, however they wish. It's a very dicey situation because you're giving them too much discretionary power.
So is this the same as a will, but you have somebody actually in charge?
Yes. The only difference is this person can do it even during your lifetime. You see, a will kicks in after you died, after you've passed on. Now, the power of attorney is something that you have to do when you're alive because you have to sign against those documents together with the person, the donee. So there's a donor and there's a donee. The donor is donating the power, the donee is receiving the power. And these documents have to be stamped and franked. Franked in this case means there's a bit of stamp duty that has to be paid and there's a particular act that is registered under. The power of attorney is it's very discretionary because if today I wake up and I want the property to benefit me, who is stopping me from doing that? So I tend to believe at times the power of attorney is good when it's specific. Specific meaning it's towards a particular direction, towards a particular thing. So at the end of the day, you as the person donating the power have control over what the person is doing or what property the person is dealing with.
Okay.
Yes. Then we have another one which is nomination forms. Nyendo is going to discuss about this. So as you're handling legal documents in your day-to-day life, whether it's an insurance form and the like, the one thing they'll tell you, especially SACCOs and insurance firms, is they'll give you a nomination form. Then they'll tell you, nominate the person in the event, and that's where the next of kin and this whole conversation comes, in the event of your death, who you'd like your benefits to pass from. Please be very careful with the people you put there. Because normally what happens is when you pass on, the benefits directly go to you unless they were holding it in trust of your child or someone. So be very careful about the person that you actually indicate on those nomination forms.
So is this next of kin or beneficiary? Because usually there's that
particular conversation about it, which I'd like Mnindo to dive into because she does it fantastically. It's a legal conversation, but at times you need someone who's within the insurance space to give you the clarity. So she's going to give that clarity. But why I'm raising this is because I'm currently in the process of doing a few things for my clients. And we've had that very huge debate where the nominee, because the nomination form, so the person who was appointed, there's one where they were appointed in trust of a minor. This person was a bit selfish, so it went against it. Another one, there was good faith. So it's a situation of saying, we've appointed this person in trust of a minor. By that time, you'd already registered a trust. So the benefits just went directly to the trust. They were like, as far as I'm concerned, if this person was alive, they had appointed me knowing that I had their best wishes. So I'd like this money to go directly to the trust for the benefit of this person's child. Yes. So again, be very careful about the circle of influence that you operate with because they determine a lot about how your life is going to be afterwards, especially for your next generation. Yes. Say for that, I think I have covered, there's gift inter vivos, which translates to gifts in the course of your lifetime. Those ones are just basically like someone decides, which happens a lot, and I hope one day this happens to me. a man somewhere is trying to lure me into something. Not lure me. That sounds so wrong. Toasting. That's the Nigerian time for it. A man is toasting me somewhere and they decide to gift me a piece of land in their lifetime and even do the transfer forms. So there's such kind of gifts. And with those gifts, again, great power comes with great responsibility. Be very careful that you even do the transfer forms and the same is effected and stamp duty is paid so that it's effected to your side. Yeah, so those are the various ways of doing it.
Okay, wow. I love it. Now, the other thing that I want to just touch on is now, what are the common mistakes that people do when doing the investments? There are various documents that many of us rarely look at, when entering. For example, as a coach, I've seen so many people who come to me as like, I signed this product for insurance and I didn't know what were the terms. Can I get out now? And maybe they're halfway into it and it's a bit too late to enter. Maybe what are some of the common things, something like that, but what are some of the common things that you've seen, common mistakes that people do? Okay. We call them pitfalls, for example.
So I love this topic so much. And I'm laughing because it's something we do on a daily basis. When you receive the first document and the first thing, most of us do is you go to the figures column because you want to understand what kind of premiums you want to pay. And we really forget the policy document itself. One thing I'll emphasize, please know what your policy document has. Also, try and understand, especially for parents who are what we call an umbrella to the rest of the team, understand what the benefits are because you lose out on so much simply because of that. Then understand what the disputes are about. But as we're starting this conversation, let me tweak it a bit.
Okay.
So what are the common pitfalls to avoid? Number one, there's this Nairobi, I say Nairobi, not anywhere else, where I've seen a lot of the ladies, in the name of protecting themselves, have hidden their assets.
Oh, yes. Please speak into that.
I have quite a number of clients, and maybe at times I preach a very wrong gospel, but it's not a bad thing. But now the dilemma is...
Are you sure it's not a bad thing?
It's not a bad thing. Again, I'm speaking as a lawyer.
Okay, advocate. As a lawyer, please.
Maybe not as a Christian.
Christians,
so
we
are
one.
We
are one, please.
Don't judge me harshly. But when it comes to property assets and the like, there's that very bad tendency of people hiding their assets. Now, the problem is when you hide your assets, your will is a private document and the like, the possibility of it being covered there is very low. So what happens when you die? Does it go to unclaimed assets? Because at the end of the day, no one can come and say, that apartment. I'll give an example. A colleague friend was telling me the other day how they know someone who stayed in this apartment for 3 years without paying rent. So this whole time, I was wondering, how can you be comfortable that you are staying for 3 years without paying rent? They're like, it's a typical ni mchezo wa town. Then on the third year is discovered the landlord had died. But now the dilemma is the children didn't know that this property existed.
Wow.
So it did not form part of the estate that they went to claim in court. So in such a circumstance, what happens?
So it's missed,
literally.
Gone, nobody can trace it.
Remember, this is Nairobi, mchezo wa town. How many people are honest enough to come and say, by the way, before your dad died, there was this property? Again, this thing of hiding assets, it might seem like the right thing to do right now, but it catches up with you. So be careful. Number 2, always update your will or whichever document after every life-altering moment. You get an accident and something happens, try and update it. You get a new child, a newborn, update because circumstances change. Also remember, with every new altering life moment, your lifestyle changes.
And new assets are acquired.
New assets are acquired every other day. Be careful to update them because once they don't form part of your estate, then it's very hard for them to, for any court, for example, if it's an interstate situation, or for a will to cater for it. So again, it has the potential bit about falling into unclaimed assets. The other one is disorganization. So you find that someone is committed to the cause, but they, for example, come and give a lawyer verbal instructions. I don't do verbal instructions. I'll have a conversation with you, but I'll still insist, again, hence why a lot of lawyers have purchased domain names. I'll insist, write me an email. In that email, write whatever it is. Or I, as an advocate, will write you a summary of our meeting and say, pursuant to the meeting held on this day, why do you want to do this? Because documentary evidence is important. I speak as a disputes lawyer. If anything comes to court, the first thing a court asks, where is the evidentiary document that you're trying to rely on? It's whatever is word of mouth at times does not hold as much water. So try as much as possible to give verbal instructions, especially matter succession, so that if anything is to occur, you have the bit where there's this document, there's this email that I wrote. Yeah. So there's some of those things are the common pitfalls that people go through. But be very careful, update your wills or trusts every other time that something happens. Avoid hiding things from people. Material disclosure is very important when it comes to especially marriage and otherwise. But I'm speaking to married people because I know there are a lot of married people in the audience or soon to be married. Be very clear with your partner that this is what is happening. This is what I'm about to acquire. Whether you want to acquire it in a company name or in both your names, just be very clear about it. I mean, before you got married to that person, I assume there was a friendship and there's some form of partnership. So they'll be in a better position to understand. Yeah.
Great. You know, I love the part for organization because you'd be amazed at how many of us acquire properties and our title deeds are all over the place.
Yes.
How many of us invest in stocks and we don't even have a statement, a most recent statement? How many of us have pension plans and I've never even asked for a statement for a pension plan? And basically what we are looking at here is how can we ensure that all these things are put together in a place, in a file where they can be easily accessed and managed. And I think that's one key point that many of us really overlook. And we are not pointing fingers here, but many of us do that. Yeah. Okay. So now that we've understood what are some of the mistakes, what are some of the things that, cause disputes, maybe now, say somebody in the audience right now wants to come and set up this family trust. What are some of the things they need to come to you with?
Okay.
Yeah.
So now we are in the future. We have decided we're making certain very fundamental decisions. So the first thing I'll tell you when it comes to setting up a family trust is be very clear about, again, this word you've had me mention it so many times already, your asset and liability portfolio, because that's what informs a lot of what will go into the trust. So come up with the asset portfolio. Tell me, for example, there are these properties that I need to have in a trust. There's this kind of objects and there's this kind of funding. By funding, in this case, I mean the money that you'd want to put in the trust. Once that's very clear, the other certain thing that we need to be very clear about is the beneficiaries. Who are the beneficiaries? Is it your children? There's a trust I've incorporated in which the trust is meant to benefit not the children, but the grandchildren. And they're very clear about it, where they believe that their children are already sorted in terms of the next generation. So they're not too sure about their grandchildren. And they want their grandchildren to have a better footing than the rest of their peers. So the idea is, let's have this trust, and this trust is going to constitute ABCD. Then number 3, when you're coming to me, you need to be very clear about the objects of the trust. What does the trust, how is the trust supposed to serve? Beyond you having beneficiaries, how is it meant to serve these beneficiaries? Because the idea here is serving the beneficiaries can include education. It can include giving them a comfortable lifestyle. It can include ensuring that at the very least, every month they have a specific amount of money. So you need to be very fundamentally clear. So think through it. Talk to your partner if you're married. If you're single, sit down, have a meeting of self before you even think about that. Then now the critical question is, who would you like to form part of your board of trustees? The board of trustees, I would compare them to a board in a limited liability company because they serve basically the same functions. They're the ones who will be overseeing the day-to-day. Even the manner in which meetings are run by the board of trustees is the same as LLCs. There needs to be quorum. There needs to be a specific number. So think about, who do you want to form the board of trustees? One of my mentors used to tell me, as you live your life, always remember that your current circle of influence might potentially end up as your pallbearers. So are you comfortable with your current circle of influence coming in as your trustees? Because also that informs how you move in society. So apart from this, the beneficiaries, the board of trustees, now think about the assets, whatever we discussed, then now come and have a conversation with me and tell me, Karen, I have maybe this 1 million Kenya shillings. I want it to be the trust fund. But I don't want it to stagnate at 1 million shillings. I want to invest this money into maybe some account of sorts and everything, and ensure that at the very least, by the time my child is earning this in the next 15 or so years, they have 15 million, so to speak, or this amount of money. So think about that conversation in that, and we can always have this conversation when I am back, which is just next week. And we can always have this conversation, the three of us, because again, when you meet us, you don't meet Karen alone. You meet Karen, you meet Chris, and you meet Mnyindo. We work as a team. So we're able to advise you from a very multifaceted perspective of, you have the financial aspect to it, you have the legal aspect to it, and everything else. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Especially when you said, your circle of friends could be your pole bearers.
Yes.
Wow. Who are your friends?
Who are your friends? And are they capable of carrying you
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. I love it. So powerful, because we rarely think about these things. Even something as, for example, if you're a parent, and if you're a parent and you have a child, who are you going to leave in charge of your kids when you're not there? That's such a serious question. And many of us, we rarely even think of dying in the first place. So how do we even go ahead and think about who are we going to leave in charge? So I think you've raised some serious things that people need to think about there. Okay, so final question. What is your advice to people now? Because you are in a place where you've seen so many families stuck in the courts fighting over property. The children are the ones suffering. The mandate was clear: leave an inheritance for your children's children. What's your advice to the people who are here right now? How do they ensure that happens?
So first of all, nothing in life is permanent. Remember that. That's how I think we move through life, ensuring that you extend yourself grace, but at the same time ensuring that everything that you have, you feel blessed for it. So number one, organize yourself. Like you said, one of the common pitfalls that most of us Kenyans have is you actually have assets, but you don't know you have assets, or you remember it the day it has an issue. Maybe you have to pay rent or rates on it. Organize yourself in such a way that if today, for example, there's that typical example we give of the metallic box that is put under the bed by most of our parents. Don't be our parents. They educated you to bring you to this level in order for you to actually have better capability. So have your asset portfolio right. Number two, honor yourself. And this is something I keep on singing nowadays, is honor yourself by ensuring that your voice can be heard even when you're not in the room. And the only way you can do that is by incorporating vehicles such as family trust and the like, or having a lawyer who has your will. And even when you have that will, let your people know that the executor of my will is so and so they have access to the will. So organize yourself, have your asset portfolio right. Look for proper vehicles such as family trust or wills and the like, in which people can hear your voice even when you're not there. When you're 6 feet under, your spirit is at peace, but they can still hear your voice by the virtue of you had taken care of everyone else. Above and beyond that, please think about policies right now if you have children. Think about many other things that Nyalwal and Mnyindo will educate you about. Don't think about earning and eating in the now. No. Think about, yes, eating in the now and enjoying your lifestyle, but at the same time planning for the future. And the only way you plan for the future is by that particular voice. Let it haunt you. If there's anything you've forgotten, let your voice be heard even when you're 6 feet under. Yes.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing all those valuable insights. And thank you so much for just being so keen to share these things, even though you couldn't make it for the summit. So ladies and gentlemen, that was the Next Generation Investor Summit 2025 with Karen Rono joining us today. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the summit. I know there's a big surprise coming at the end of this. See you.
Thank you.